These are the conversations we weren't supposed to have, and the stories we weren't supposed to tell. This is the Jerry and Nathan Show.
Well, hey, y'all.
Welcome. We're so glad to have you back on the Jerry and Nathan Show. I am Nathan.
And I'm Jerry.
We were both going to talk at the same time. So this is part 2 of Jerry's story. And we're going to dive in here in just a minute, but he had a couple things he wanted to share before we got into the story time.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, I want to thank all of you guys for your positive responses, your feedback. I got all kinds of messages. Thank you for listening to it. Thank you for sharing it. Several people shared it on their social media. And we had listens, Nate, from all over, right?
We did. We had them from all over the country and even other parts of the world. So that's very, very cool. Very exciting.
Yeah, very interesting. Who was using VPN?
Yeah. Tell us, who was it?
No, but seriously, I got messages sent to me. I only got one hate gram.
I know. Well, that's good. Then we're doing the right thing.
Yeah. But the overwhelming majority was very positive. People were sending me messages saying how it helped them, how it opened their eyes to things. Just very, very positive. So thank you so much. It was almost overwhelming. We were nervous when we started. Didn't know if it was going to go over. Didn't know if you guys would like it or enjoy it. But really have been overwhelmed at the responses. So just thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Huge thank you. Well, are you ready to share part 2?
Yeah, but let's talk first that if they've not listened to episode 1.
Very important.
Yeah. If you've not listened to episode 1, you need to go back and listen to that because it sets the stage and the groundwork for how I was raised, the religious restrictions, the things that were put on me as a child and growing up. So you really need to go back and listen to that. And then what else do they need to do?
And the other thing is make sure, so many of you did share it and you shared it on your social media, you shared it with family members. So continue to do that. That's a huge help, but also like and rate and review it, especially if you've got Apple Podcasts, go in there and do a review. It helps other people find it. And that's what we want to do. We want to reach as many people as we can to build community and to share these stories, not just our stories, but other stories as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm going to get into my story, but first I've got some disclaimers and disclosures and some clarifications that I need to make. All right, so first, clarification. Someone messaged me and said, I was raised Free Will Baptist and my church wasn't crazy like that. So my response to you is, good for you. But no, really. My church was an independent Free Will Baptist church. So that means it was not affiliated with an association or any national conference of Free Will Baptist. Independent Free Will Baptist means that church is independent of anything else and can do really whatever they want to within their own congregation. They're not held accountable to any type of oversight or governance. So it's the pastor and the deacons or whatever. And so when you hear independent with anything, really, independent Baptist, independent Free Will Baptist, typically it means it's a lot more rigid, strict, and legalistic, to be honest. So that's the difference. The other clarification, I'm not sure if it's clarification or not, but something that was an epiphany to me this week. Last week I said, I quoted the scripture, and I think it's in Psalm, that says, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. And I said, I don't know if I agree with fearfully. I don't understand that. But after talking about it with Nathan this week, remember, Nathan's a former pastor.
Yeah, recovering pastor.
And after talking with him this week, the word fearful sometimes in the Bible means with respect or caution or careful. And so when you put that into the meaning, it really has even more power. So if you say, I was carefully and wonderfully made, then just wow, right? Who is someone else to question how carefully and wonderfully you were made. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in there this week. And then one last disclaimer, and I'll get started. Wasn't there a Joan Rivers comedy show where she keeps saying one more thing?
Yeah,
and
one
then
more thing, and then I'll get started.
Okay, so one more disclaimer. This episode is going to get a little bit deep and a little bit heavy because I'm going to share a part of my story that talks about attempted suicide. So if you are triggered by depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts, when we get there, I will give you another warning because I certainly don't want you to be triggered or our conversation to cause you pain or discomfort or to have bad thoughts or to be triggered. This is meant to help you and to create community and to let you know that you're not alone. So, all right, that's it. All my disclaimers are done. So last week, we talked about my upbringing and the religiosity and the cult, if you will, that I was raised in, the restrictions, the rules, all the legalism, the things that we had to do in order to be Christian and not go to hell, right? So I took us all the way up to when I enrolled in college, and so I want to pick up there this week. So after I went to college, I also got a job, and my job was in a telemarketing firm in Johnson City, where I'm from. And for the first time ever, I actually met real gay people. And if you're not familiar, telemarketing, I feel like is kind of almost a thing of the past now, but telemarketing agencies, call centers are kind of a breeding ground for gay people. And so, and when I got the job there were gay people that were working there, and for some reason I was absolutely drawn to them. I had never seen it's very weird to say it now, but I'd never seen real live gay people
in the wild.
Yeah. Well, because remember, I didn't have a TV. I wasn't exposed to anything. It was a very small world that I was involved in, and I was very sheltered from things like that. And one thing I learned from last week's podcast, I love to say the word incidentally. But incidentally, we did get a TV when I was 16 or 17 years old. And the reason we did, my dad worked for a factory that built defense missiles. And so during the Desert Storm War, I actually think it might have even been Desert Shield first. Anyway, in the Middle East conflict, they used the defense missiles built by my dad's company. And so he was intrigued by all that. He wanted to see what happened, how were they using the defense missiles, and we wound up getting a TV. But we weren't supposed to have a TV because remember the sin of I will set no wicked thing before my eye. So we had a little table in the living room, and that table had one of those little spreads that came down over top of it like a little tablecloth. It was a decorative table. We would set the TV on that table, but if someone was coming to visit from the church, we would always put the TV under the table and pull the cloth down over it so you couldn't see it. That way we didn't get the reputation of being sinners.
Heaven forbid.
Yeah. Certainly didn't want to be accused of being backsliders, which is another word that I used a lot last week. But anyway, so we did get a TV, but even then I was not exposed to a lot of culture or anyone who was gay. And I went to work in this call center, this telemarketing place, and there were gay people there, and I was drawn to them. I wanted to understand them. I wanted to talk to them. I wanted to see what they were like. So I would always get my seat beside a gay guy. And I wanted to hear, like, what do they say? What do they do? Like, what do they talk about? And they were out and proud, like living their best life. And it was just so intriguing for me. And then I realized that I was very sheltered and did have a very small world. And I wanted to start changing my appearance, right? Because I guess I was kind of plain. But also in the church, when you're told Sunday after Sunday that gay people are dirty and filthy and disgusting and rotten and black-hearted and sinful and all those things, and you know that you are probably gay, or at least you think you are, it makes you feel very ugly. And you start believing all those things about yourself. And so I had money for the first time that was my own money. And so I started buying nicer clothes. I loved bright colors. And so I started wearing bright colored clothes. And I started trying to change my appearance so that I could be prettier and be more attractive. And I went to the tanning bed and got a nice tan. And then I changed my eye color. I started wearing tinted or colored contacts and changed my eyes from brown to blue. I started whitening my teeth so that they would be very white and brilliant, and my smile would be all pretty. Just so many things that I tried to do to make myself feel better about how I looked. But also I looked around at the gay guys at work, and those are some of the things that they did, and they looked so good, and I wanted to look better. And I met a guy there, one of the gay guys. He was probably one of the best looking gay guys that worked there. His name was John, and John always was impeccably dressed. His hair was always fixed. His eyebrows were always on point. He was very tan, had white teeth, and I became friends with him. And we would sit together, and then he invited me to go shopping with him. And I knew John was gay, but, I don't know. I mean, I guess I was naive a little bit. So I went shopping with him, and he tried to explain to me that his gaydar went off and that I was gay. Now, secretly I knew I was a little homo, but I denied it up one side and down the other. No, absolutely, I'm not gay. That's wrong. That's a sin. You're probably not gay either. You just think you are, kind of whatever. But we started hanging out a lot, and I really liked him. And he kept trying to convince me that I was gay and that I needed to come out. And so one day I remember saying to him, just, hey, hypothetically, if I were gay, how would that make you feel? And he said to me, it's not about how I feel. It's about how it would make you feel, because you would be so relieved if you could be honest with yourself and open. Because he said, you think you're hiding it, but people know. People can tell when they look at you and talk to you that you're gay. You're not hiding anything. So finally, I just said to him, you know what? I think you're right. I think maybe I am gay, and I think I have feelings for you. And he seemed to be flattered in the moment. We hung out, maybe a couple more times. It got a little more intimate. And then suddenly, he stopped taking my calls. He stopped talking to me. He didn't want to have anything to do with me. And I didn't understand. I didn't know what a player was. I didn't know there were such things as challenges where you can get a guy to admit he's in love with you and then you kick him to the curb. I had no idea that was a thing. But that appeared to be what was happening. And so it played with my mind so much, and I thought it was my fault. It was something I did wrong, and I started to have really bad panic attacks. And the panic attacks landed me in the emergency room more than once. And I remember the emergency room doctor told my mom and dad he needs therapy. But my mom and dad were old school, and so they just said, no, we go to church, we're Christians, we're just going to pray for him. And so there you have it. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, if I could do something better, then John would really like me more. So I know I need to buy him things. I need to do things for him because I'm not good enough right now. But if I can buy him things and I can do nice things for him, then that will make me good enough, and then he will love me. And so I did. I started buying him really expensive gifts, very nice things, for which he would accept and sometimes say thank you, but it didn't make him change. He still would ignore my calls and wouldn't have much to do with me. And one day I remember I was just so distraught, and I felt like I was having anxiety and a panic attack, and I stopped at a convenience store in Elizabethton, Tennessee. And in that area, if you're from that area, you're familiar, they have a drink called Dr. Enough. It's a type of soda / energy drink. It's very regional to that area. I got a Dr. Enough and 2 bottles of Tylenol. Now, when we were growing up, we obviously didn't drink, and we weren't exposed to any powerful medications or anything like that. So I didn't know, and I just bought 2 bottles of Tylenol, a Dr. Enough, and I got in the car, and I just thought, I'm going to end it all. And I took both bottles of Tylenol and drank my Dr. Enough. And about 20, 30 minutes later, I started feeling very tired, very lethargic, very sleepy. And so I was driving, and I didn't know where I was driving. I was just driving aimlessly around. So I pulled the car off on the shoulder of the road, and I just recall thinking, I'm going to die. I'm literally going to die. And so I found a piece of an envelope, scrap paper in the car, and a pen, and I wrote a note to my parents, and I just said to them, I'm sorry I couldn't be what you wanted me to be. I love you, and I'm sorry to put you through this. Put the pen and paper down in the passenger seat, laid my seat back, and I just went to sleep. And as luck would have it, one of my friends passed by and recognized my car and stopped, found me, and by that time I was not responsive, and he took me to the hospital. Instead of calling 911 and waiting for an ambulance, he just put me in his car and took me to the hospital. And I was admitted to the hospital, and I didn't realize that Tylenol is very toxic to one's liver. And so I had to go through all kinds of detox and drink all these different liquids. I was in the ICU for about 5 days, and visiting hours in the ICU were only 1 hour a day. So first people, of course, that showed up were my parents. And they were very gracious. They didn't judge right away. They told me they loved me, and then they prayed with me. And it was okay because I just wanted to be loved. I needed love at that time.
Well, and I think, too, that is also for where you guys came from, that was like, you can lose your salvation for this. So there's a lot of theological stuff happening at the same time.
Yeah, because suicide was not considered a mental health condition. It was considered a sin.
Right.
If you committed suicide, you were definitely in hell. And so they prayed with me, and eventually I was moved out into a room before I was discharged, like a regular room before I was discharged to come home. And Dad had some of his pastor friends come in and lay hands on me. And sorry, you guys, I'm getting very emotional. But they laid hands on me and prayed with me. And Dad told me, if you ever want to be right with God, when you get out, you're going to have to get up in front of the church. And you're going to have to apologize to the church. And you're going to have to ask the church to forgive you. And then you're going to have to ask them to pray with you so that God will forgive you. And so the doctor offered therapy, but my dad said, we'll handle it. We're just going to pray for him. We're Christians. And so sure enough, Sunday, I got my happy little white butt up in front of that church, and I had to apologize to them and told them that I was sorry, that I had sinned and I had tried to take my own life. And I asked them to pray with me that I would be forgiven because I didn't want to go to hell. And they did. And, I don't know where they found that in the Bible. I don't know what scripture that is, but I'm sure they found it somewhere. And that's what I was supposed to do. I didn't pray to be forgiven, y'all. I prayed to be healed. I didn't want this thing in me anymore, whatever it was. I wanted to not have these feelings for men. And I wanted to just be normal, what I thought was normal. And for a couple of days, I felt better, I guess. And then all those feelings came back again. And so finally, I just told Mom and Dad, because, as a child, you always go to your parents when you're in need. That's what your parents are there for, to provide guidance and support and help. So I just went to Mom and Dad and I said, yeah, I think I'm gay. And I didn't know how it would be received or accepted, but I hoped that they would accept me. And it did not work out that way. It didn't turn out that way at all. They expressed their disgust and their displeasure, and that I clearly had a demon or the devil or Satan was working on me or something to that degree, and that we really just needed to pray. And my dad seemed to take it a lot worse than my mom. And my dad is a very country, Appalachian country man. And he had this very country deep voice, and I remember he said, "Jerry, do you mean to tell me that you've done things with another man's Peter in your mouth?"
I can totally hear this conversation happening.
Oh my God. You want to talk about embarrassing. And so I just looked at my dad and I said, yes. And he said, "Oh God, have mercy. Let's pray. Young'uns, we've got to pray. We got to pray right now." And so we did. We got down in the kitchen and we prayed, and it didn't go away. It didn't work. But what did happen is I realized I cannot talk to my parents about this. They're not going to be accepting. They're not going to receive it. They're not going to love me the same way if they know me. And so I just tried to go back to living a regular life and not think about it. And if I did think about it, I certainly didn't tell them. So then, I'm still working at this call center, this telemarketing place, and I met another friend. Now, this guy was a little bit different because he went to church. And he was involved in church. He sang, he played music, but he was very nice looking, very well dressed. He had a girlfriend. So I didn't think he was gay, although he was pretty. So I wanted to be his friend. And so we became really good friends. Stop laughing at me.
Oh, that's so funny.
So we became really good friends. We would go do things together, go out and eat, go shopping together. I met his girlfriend. I didn't like her very much, but anyway, we started to have very, how shall I say, intimate conversations, and one thing led to another, and we became more than friends. We'll leave it there. And so I remember talking to him and I said, "Look, if anybody finds out about us, then it's over. It's like we're in trouble. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to get an apartment together. We're going to be boyfriends behind closed doors. But in public, we are roommates, period, the end. We are best friends and roommates. The apartment can be 2 bedrooms. I'll sleep with you. You can sleep with me, whatever. We don't have to use both bedrooms, but for appearances, we are roommates. And so he agreed. We agreed, and we moved in together. And he started coming to my church with me, and I played the piano, and he played the organ. And he started traveling and singing with us in our singing group that I talked about last episode. And my parents loved him, absolutely adored him. He fixed my mom's hair for her. And obviously they knew, but because we were roommates and best friends and involved in church together, then it was okay, right? Because they didn't know the whole story.
Right. You weren't confirming anything, so it was totally acceptable.
Exactly. Yeah. So about this time, my mom became ill. So she got sick. She was diagnosed with lupus. She had pulmonary embolism, which from there she was then diagnosed with lupus. And then she had another neuromuscular disease, kind of like muscular dystrophy, in which she started losing some of the use of the limbs of her body. Her legs and feet and her hands and arms didn't work correctly, and she would fall and lose her balance and things like that. And so our singing kind of slowed down a little bit because of Mom's health condition. And in addition to that, my brother, Mike, who was married and had 3 kids, started having some issues in his marriage. And him and his wife divorced. And he got custody of all 3 kids. And he needed my help. And so he would ask me to come over and stay with him sometimes in the early morning hours because he went to work early and he needed my help to stay there with the kids until they got on the bus and got off to school. And the youngest I would take with me back to my mom's for Mom to babysit. And one night in the middle of the night, sometime around 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm in the bed with my boyfriend, and my mom called and said, Mike's house has caught on fire. He's injured. They've taken him to the hospital. I don't know how bad it is, but you'll probably want to go to the hospital and find out. So sure enough, I got up, got dressed. My boyfriend got up, got dressed with me. We went to the hospital, to the emergency room. When we got there, my dad and older brother were sitting in the waiting room, and the chaplain was talking to them. And I could tell by the looks on their faces, this is bad. This is pretty bad. And the chaplain said to me, your brother has passed away. And y'all, I had never lost anyone in my family that was that close. I mean, I'd had aunts and uncles and grandparents that had died, but my brother, the one that I just stayed with the night before, and I lost it. I passed out in the waiting room, and when I came to, my boyfriend, who was my roommate, couldn't comfort me like a boyfriend would. He was just basically offering me water and the only comfort that a roommate would provide. And it was just very heavy. I remember going through the funeral services and my boyfriend sitting in a different location because this part was reserved for family, and clearly he wasn't family. He's just Jerry's roommate. And it was a very, very difficult time. And the only thing that I remember thinking was, Mike died because I am a sinner. And if I weren't gay, my brother would still be alive. And I carried that weight with me for weeks, and I couldn't sleep, and I couldn't eat, and I had to go on antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication. And, finally, I realized that this was an accident. It didn't have anything to do with me, and I couldn't have stopped it. There was nothing I could have done differently, and it wasn't because of who I am that this happened. It's just it just happened. It's one of those things in life that we can't explain away. But also through this process, my boyfriend who lived with me became very, very depressed. And he was like, I don't like how this was all handled. I want to come out. I want to be honest and open, and I want us to be together. And I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it because I had tried to come out to my parents before. I saw the disgust and the hurt in their eyes. They had just lost their son, Mike, and I couldn't do it. And so my boyfriend became very depressed. He was unable to work, and we wound up splitting up. He went to move in with his sister, and I moved into a mobile home that Dad had owned and rented, and he basically gave it to me and said, I will give you this if you want to live here. I don't want to rent it anymore, and you can use it, fix it up, sell it, make a down payment on a house if that's what you want to do. So I moved up to Hampton, Tennessee, and I was all alone. I had no boyfriend. My family was all in Johnson City. I just became very, very depressed. And I would fast and pray and ask God to please, please make me not gay. Take the gay away. Please, please. And if not, could you maybe make my boyfriend come back to me, and maybe we could do it differently the next time. Maybe I could come out just a little bit and make him happy, but still not come out to everybody so that I could still go to heaven and I wouldn't have to worry about going to hell if I died. And it was just such a struggle for me. And finally I realized, you know what? Music has always brought me out of the funk. And I can play the piano and I can sing, and we've put our singing on hold for a little bit. Let me just start writing some songs and let's start singing. Let's really focus on our singing and see what we can do. And so I spent a lot of money on sound equipment, and we purchased a lot of new microphones, new speakers, a new keyboard, all kinds of different things that I spent money on. We recorded for the first time an actual professional CD with professional musicians, and it honestly, it did really well. I had written several songs on the CD. My sister Amy had written several songs on the CD, and we released it to radio. And one of the songs actually charted for us on one of the gospel music charts. I think it peaked as high as number 34 out of the top 100. And so it was very successful, and we actually were booked in several different venues with different groups, and we were doing well. And so we got invited to go to National Quartet Convention and sing on a showcase in front of several radio promoters. All right, let me just talk to you guys for a minute about National Quartet Convention. There are so many closet cases in the church. You can always tell, if it's the choir director who dresses really cute, or it's the piano player who walks a little differently. But they're hiding all over in the church. Some are hiding better than others. Sometimes it's the youth pastor. Hell, sometimes it's the real pastor, the senior pastor. But
really?
You don't know anything about that?
No, I don't know anything about that.
Mm-mm. But we went to National Quartet Convention, and these well-known gospel artists were up on stage singing and praising Jesus, and then hooking up in the bathroom. I went to pee in the bathroom, and there's a used condom and a pair of underwear laying there. The only thing that was happening in that convention that week was National Quartet Convention. I got propositioned to go get on the bus and hook up with a couple of gospel artists. Another one asked me if I would like to come to his bus so he could give me a massage. Like, y'all, it was, I don't even know. It was like gay pride and gospel music or something. Like, it was, I have never been so shocked. And I shouldn't have been shocked. I should have known, because gay people love music and arts. And if they've been raised in the church, if they've been brought up in the church, it would make sense that they're going to sing gospel music and they're going to go put on a show for people. Mm-hmm. But it was very shocking and eye-opening for me. And so I decided, hey, you know what? If they can do it, I can do it too. So I just started having this little double life that I was living. I got an iPhone. And there
downloaded apps.
There was an app on the iPhone, and it was used for social networking.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's for.
It's called Grindr. Y'all ever heard of that?
No.
They're good Christian people. They ain't never heard of it. But yeah, so I downloaded Grindr. Y'all, I didn't have very good luck with Grindr. I really didn't. I met some doozies. I got left at the movie theater one time. I got my leather jacket stolen. I didn't have good luck with Grindr at all, until I met a guy on Grindr who was about 3 miles from my house. At least that's the Grindr location. Now, we're going to go into a little bit more detail with this one when Nathan and I tell our story. But let's just see if you can read between the lines. This guy that I met on Grindr was a pastor. We'll leave it there. Pick it up in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was the only success story that I had on Grindr. But back to the singing and the gospel music. Our song that we did. You know, I played for you last episode, Tagging Along with Jesus, when I was 10 years old. And so I thought maybe you might want to hear what the end of the Montgomerys sound like before I obviously married a man. So let's play a little bit of that song.
All right, let's do it.
I made my choice.
I've made my choice.
I made my choice.
I've made my choice.
When Satan tries to get me
I've
down,
made my choice.
see, I've made my choice.
I've made my choice.
I'm moving up to
I've made my
higher
choice.
ground. I've made my choice.
I've made my choice.
I don't know what you're gonna
I've made
do,
my choice.
but I've made my choice.
I've made my
In
choice.
Jesus Christ, I'm going through. I've made my choice.
I've Made My Choice was the chart song that peaked at number 34. I think it's very ironic that it's called I've Made My Choice, because there were many choices that I made after that put me on the life projection that I'm on now. And it's very happy choices, great decisions that I think were made. And unfortunately, they required walking away from things that I had been taught and had heard. We're going to talk about deconstruction of the faith and of the religious culture in later episodes, so I won't dive into that at this point. But what I will say is that the choices that we make in life can put us on a trajectory of either bondage and legalism or happiness, liberation, and freedom. And I'm thankful that I've made the right choices.
Yeah, and I think for people who do, have, still hold on to their faith and they, hold on to Christian scripture, and it says where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. And I always have thought that was an important one. And we talked about that so much in the early years together, because I was like, wait a minute, but where the Spirit is, there's liberty, there's freedom, there's joy, there's happiness. Like, that's what you're supposed to have. And man, there's a lot of people that don't.
Yeah. Yeah. They're miserable.
Yeah.
They're miserable. Well, listen, y'all, I think I'm going to leave it here. Next episode, Nathan's going to start talking about his story and his childhood and his journey. But what I want to say to you before we end the episode, if you are feeling alone and you're feeling like you don't have anyone to talk to, maybe you're even having suicidal thoughts, let me just share with you, you are not alone. The purpose of us doing this podcast was not only because we thought it would kind of help us to put some things out in the open that we've never really talked about in a public forum, but it's to help you understand that you're not alone and that there is community out there. Just for those of you who are not aware, suicide rates, according to the National Institute of Health, suicide rates in LGBT adults are about 3 to 6 times more likely than in heterosexual adults. And part of that is because of rejection. They feel, we feel that we don't have a sense of belonging. We don't have a home. We don't have community. And so I'm here to say to you, if that's how you feel, reach out to someone. There are hotlines that are set up and are available for you. But if you don't want to talk to a total stranger, DM me, instant message me. If you got my number, text me. I'm happy to talk to you. And if you don't want to hear my advice and you don't want me to talk, I'm happy to listen and commiserate with you. Because we get through this journey of life supporting one another. And it is a journey. It's peaks. It's valleys. There are times where we feel great. There are times where we feel down. But the journey is what makes life. And so we appreciate you for listening. Hopefully you've been able to hear my story and identify. And if you can't identify with it, hopefully it has helped you to understand someone else in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So I said last week to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and I totally gave the wrong Facebook and Instagram. So it's the J and N Show on Facebook and Instagram. You can follow us, and you can also message us there as well. So we look forward to the next episode here in a couple of weeks, and we look forward to hearing from you. So continue to like, share, rate, and review the show so that more people can find it, and we can continue to grow this community.
Thanks, y'all.
Have a great week.